Okay, hi. Today we're going to talk about describing art, specifically a written description of art, of paintings or sculpture. And so we're going to learn something called the genre approach to learning or improving writing. In this approach, students are given a framework for language instruction. So, a framework meaning an example. In fact, this is based on examples of a particular genre. Students, in looking at these examples, will notice the language that's used, so that includes grammar patterns, vocabulary, collocations, etc. The writing structure, including paragraphs, the length of the writing, the patterns in content, the writing tone and register, so formal, informal, etc., and who the intended audience is, so who the writing is for. Okay. So let's look, for example, when we're describing art, what kind of grammar do we tend to see in descriptions of sculptures or paintings? Well, we usually, in terms of verb forms, we tend to see the present simple, the present continuous, the present perfect, and the past simple. For example, Warhol created a tightly organized work. This is the past simple. We see a group of men on horses. This is very interesting use of the present simple. The repetition of color throughout is evidence of, so that again is the present simple. It is a painting filled with energy and life, again, present simple. And the artist has added, almost as an afterthought, splashes of gray. Well, that would be the present perfect. Okay? So be aware of the grammar when you're reading an example of description of art. Try and notice the grammar that's being used. Very often, the active and the passive voice are used, they're interchanged. Okay, and some examples here. The woman is depicted, so that's just a classic sentence, and that's the passive form. We see the group of men, again, the interesting use of the present simple, and that is the active form. The painter has added, okay, so that again is the active form. And color is splashed across the canvas, quite dramatic use of the passive form there. Okay, there are some common verbs that you will see in all descriptions of art. You'll see these recur, so you might as well learn them and use them. These include verbs on this list, but it's not limited to these verbs. For example, depict, show, represent, provide, suggest, notice. I'll just read them for you. Add, render, focus or focus on, portray, illustrate, detail, that is to detail, the verb, narrate, to narrate, we're talking about a visual story, include, color, or the North American spelling color without the U, to combine or mix, to use, to choose, etc. There are many, many different verbs you can use, but these ones are pretty standard verbs. Let's talk about the tone and the audience or the purpose of the text. Remember that the tone is usually neutral or informal, okay? Probably more towards neutral, okay? It's not a very casual tone, but it does depend on the audience. So if the text is being written for a student, it might be different than if it's being written for an art enthusiast or a buyer, for example. And the purpose of the text could be to teach, to inform, to educate, to share opinions among enthusiasts, or to persuade, perhaps if it's for a buyer, etc. The structure of the text, so the order in which things happen in a text, okay, it does depend on the task. Very often, a description will start with a strong start, even a hook sentence that sort of grabs the reader's attention. There's usually an introduction and a conclusion, and very often historical content is included, including the effect on the viewer. That may also be included. And of course, writing conventions such as paragraphs are always followed. So please use paragraphs. So now it's your turn. So you get a chance to describe some art. Bye bye.